So, public comment. We have no members of the public with us at the moment. We'll give them another chance later on. Okay, so the minutes from the last meeting, are there any changes, corrections? If not, do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a motion to approve? Because we've all read them, right? Okay. Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor? Okay, opposed? Abstained? Okay, the motion carries. Treasurer's report and the check register.
I'll just tell you that the treasurer's report is the final treasurer's report, and so at the end of 2000, we had the auditors with us last week, so this is done. And compared to the final budget, the amended budget, we have 98% of that forecasted revenue, and we wound up with a net income of $242,000 versus an estimate of $267,000. So the amended budget was very close.
Questions on that? In the treasurer's report? Or any comments? Okay. Ready? Were you going to proceed to the check register?
Oh,
or did you have more?
I can just say that we gave you a new check register, and there's primarily there's some beginning of the year maintenance agreements in there. I can go over them if you wish, and then you might see in the checks 6721 ProQuest. That's Ancestry database. So that's in the check register.
Okay.
Go for it.
So there's a lot of museum pass purchases. Could you just talk generally about what that's about?
Sure. We have the Museum Pass program at all of our libraries where individuals can check out a museum pass to MySci, the Wild Center, several Berkshire museums and stuff like that. And it gives them access for, I think, a 7-day period for most of them.
Cool.
For free.
So, if you haven't been to the Wild Center, I recommend it.
Yes, I do
It's
too.
very cool.
I actually have my
You should
annual.
get them out of the library and not pay.
I was very excited to hear that one was offered because that one is a really cool experience.
Eric Carle Museum.
Yep.
Thanks,
We
Rick.
used that one last year.
Questions or comments on the check register?
So one more.
Sure.
So a lot of these maintenance agreements,
Yeah.
they're for a 1-year period?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Comments or questions for Mary? Now, do I have a motion to approve the check register?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, first Allison, and
Second.
Angie. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining, the motion carries. Did you have anything else, Mary? In your report?
No, we have the budget later.
Okay, all right, so we'll wait for that. Okay, so committee reports, Finance Committee.
Sure, we met twice, and I sent around these minutes. First time we met was January 24th. Mary and Scott brought the budget timeline about how we need to follow along. They presented a tax sheet of how much, 5 different options, how much a homeowner would have their taxes increase or decrease based on the different percentages. And we looked at 3 different options of budgets. One that would lower the taxes by 0.6%.
Well, that would be a crowd pleaser.
Yes, but with that, we would still have to use $105,000 out of the fund balance. And it would be keeping everything status quo, which isn't great at the moment. Option B would give a 0% increase. And we'd still have to use $53,000 of the fund balance. And option C would increase taxes by 0.6%, and this would allow us to break even and not have to use any fund balance.
And so what impact does that have on the homeowner? We see it in option A, but we don't see it here.
We have it in the packet.
I see.
Yeah, we have it on the amount of this term.
Oh, okay.
It depends.
Yeah, it depends on what your
specifically
house is assessed at.
Well, this one says $350 a year for
But
homeowners.
the one thing that I'd like to add on Allison's 3 scenarios here, where that was with staff, same constant, no additions to staff on those. So this was in the January.
Right, this is just the first time we met.
I see.
So, but there was a lot of discussion about these 3 options, because with using option A, we would have to look at some really big cuts in the library. And when we're talking about these big cuts, we're talking about closing branch and reducing size of branch, and so, in option B, the same thing, we'd have to look at some big cuts. Option C, we could keep it as is right now, but we're at a very lean budget as it is. We don't have the stuffing that we really require. So after that, we talked about some things that we should think about adding staff. What would that look like? What if we asked for a higher percentage? So we had a lot of questions, so we decided to adjourn and meet again in February. And so at the February meeting, a new tax sheet was given, which is in the packet, that breaks it down from the negative 0.6% all the way up to 5%, and what impact that would be for the taxpayers. We also talked about staffing, because right now, staffing, it's such a lean workforce that it's really more of a staffing for a 4 to 5 branch system rather than the 7 branches that we have. So if people are out sick, it makes it very hard for the staff here to try and find the manpower to be able to make all the branches run, and that's not ideal for anybody's working conditions. So we had talked to Scott about what would the ideal staffing look like, and he met with people of his staff, and they had 2 different options. What would help when people call in sick, what would stop that panic versus what is the ideal staffing situation. And Mary and Scott were gracious enough to run a lot of budgets at all different percentages, from the decrease all the way to the 0.6 increase, with all those various staffing options. And we, again, talked about the hard decisions of what we're really going to need to look at in the future, which is, one of them is the closing of North Albany, and the other one is reducing the size of Washington Avenue. If North Albany was to close, some staff could be moved over to other branches where it's needed. We would save on rent costs. And if we reduce the size of Washington Avenue to the first floor, that would also be able to reduce staff, because we wouldn't need as many for both floors. And so they're very hard decisions and very hard topics to talk about, but they're things that in the future we really do need to discuss. And so we looked at a combination of things. One of the budgets we liked was a 0.63% increase, which is not as much of an increase as we asked for last year. We talked about including a social worker into the budget, adding more money to programming, and figuring out which staffing is most necessary at this time. But that's where we're at this point.
Okay, so at this point, it's informational for the board. you don't have anything for us to act on
We
tonight?
do have a budget tonight that we wanted to
Right.
present, so I don't know if you wanna do it now or,
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it?
okay.
But before we move on, I have a question. So do libraries Scott have any sort of staffing model based on number of patrons, square footage, that kind of thing?
No.
No.
You know, I've worked for directors in the past who have come up with their own equations.
But there's no state or national formula or
No, there's no
anything
state or
like that.
national formula. We did look at libraries that were given star ratings that were about as we are, and we found ourselves 4 to 5 staff short, full body short per branch. And Cleveland Heights is an example I always use. They have about the same size budget as we do. And
Did you say per branch?
per branch? Yeah.
4 or 5 full-time positions short per branch?
Yes.
That's sizable.
You know, the example we always like to use, because it was the library, Saratoga Springs. So we got we got top 20 workplaces in 2015. The other library that was in those top 20 is Saratoga Springs Library. They have one location, they have 123 staff members for one location.
So how is it that they can afford that and we can't? How are they funded? And
They're a school district library
Right.
or a special district
But
library.
they also have the one location.
They only have one
They
location.
only have one building now,
So,
so they're
one
not like.
building, one set of books, resources.
so funding is based on what? How do they allocate the funds to libraries? Is it based on?
The same thing we do. They do a budget. They do a budget ask. They have a vote on it.
Their operating budget is just slightly below ours. It's, I believe,
Because it's FTE heavy, right?
well, it's FTE heavy, but it's also like, they're missing the operating cost of 6 buildings that we
Right.
have.
So I mean, even if we were just to take Washington Avenue as a main library, and to compare that to other municipalities' main libraries, which they typically have one building, they have significantly more staff, in that building than we do. So we're trying to run a main library, a library the size of the Washington Avenue branch, with probably half the staff of Colony. And I think we may actually have better hours. I could be wrong. So that's just one branch. If you look at Pine Hills, which is the second largest operation that we have, there are days where we run that branch with 3 people in the building. And that's a concern.
So, to stay within the tax cap law, what is the percentage, because I know it's not 2%. When will we know what
The
that is?
September after the vote.
Yeah, the September of this year. What always happens is Bob always has the board,
Do
an override vote, yeah.
Mhm.
And if the budget, ever goes beyond that, then you don't reverse the override. Right, so if, let's say, whatever, if it's 1.5%,
Mhm.
and, if that's what the percentage came out to be, and if we went for 1.6, then you would not reverse the override vote that you.
So why are we looking at 63%? I mean, was that just a?
That was just an option. That was an option before. We were looking, when we did multiple scenarios we were trying to see what.
62% got us to 0.
Yeah, it got
I'm
us
sorry,
to 0. It got us
60
to
I see.
0. Yeah, it got us to a budget, which was one of Scott's goal, which was not to eat into the fund
There
balance.
was 2 sides of this issue.
And that's with no people in it.
Yeah, there are 2 sides to APL's current issue moving forward. We are understaffed, which we've been looking at this for 2 years now. I do think there's more efficiencies that we can find, but I don't think it's gonna save us enough money to hire an extra person. I I mean, in order for us to find savings in our budget to pay for one staff member, one full-time staff member, we would need a savings of around $60,000 to $70,000. So we know that we are understaffed from observation, from staff feedback, from managerial feedback, from talking with supervisors. Even I think the statistics say it somewhat. So we know we're understaffed. On the same side, it's almost like a double-edged sword. On the same side, we project to run a deficit every year we put a budget out to vote. Now, in the last 2 years, Mary's done a fantastic job as CFO to find savings, but a lot of last year's savings had to do with DASNY money and grant money. So I really think this year we will actually spend into our deficit. So that's our double-edged sword. We have not enough staff and we're running a deficit, which means at some point we've projected out we will run out of money.
So what are you looking for from us? A recommendation that in fact we want to stay within the 2% tax? Do we want to? Do you want to hear from us that in fact we want those things, increased staff and?
Well,
Why don't we go through our
Yeah,
presentation
send me-
and then you'll be able to ask this question. You'll see what we're proposing. And what we're proposing is kind of a combination of everything we heard back from the
okay, so let me
Finance
just
Committee.
stop and ask if anybody objects to moving ahead to that agenda item, because it makes sense since we're already in this discussion.
Please.
Okay?
Okay.
Now, go ahead, Mary.
Okay. Well, the first.
Do we have this?
You do. Well, you have a big model right in front of you,
Oh,
this
okay.
big one, but we'll get to that last, okay?
All right.
Just so that you start with the page in the packet, which is on the assessed value of, this is the assessed value of a home in Albany. And when you look at the tax levy on the second line where it says 0%, and the total tax levy of 8.5 million, the homestead tax in the city of Albany, library tax, is $1.55.29. So then you get across the columns, if this is what we normally go for in the paper. If you have a home assessed at $150,000, the library tax is $232.94. So the various options we were going for in front of the Finance Committee, one option was, in total, if we had decreased the taxes by 0.61%, then what is that really gonna save that homeowner? He or she will go from $232.94 only down to $231.50. So our thinking, was, I guess the conversations we were having is, number one, we refinance the bonds in round numbers. We're saving $200,000 a year to the taxpayers in the city. That's real money that we're saving. We'll see it when we get to the big budget sheet. But then we're saying, okay, we had a philosophical discussion about the total taxation, and we're saying, with saving that money, do we give it all back to the taxpayers, or do we help address some of the costs that we have in our budget? And we'll come back to that, but we really got to the point that we wanted to take the savings and put it back, and we're gonna propose a 0% increase. So that's kind of the bottom line. So we'll keep on, we can come back to this page. And
0% increase with shifting the dollars gained from the
bonds into operations. Okay,
So,
so.
Because that was gonna be our next question. How does that
Can we
play
legally
out?
We'll get it, Alyssa,
We
you'll see
have-
it, you'll see it when we come to the big page, okay?
Let me just answer Alyssa's question. Yes, we can legally do that by voting on it, by
Yes,
putting it into a public vote.
yeah,
Okay.
okay. And then the second page that I definitely want you to see, please, is the page in your packet with the assumptions. Because when we met with the Finance Committee, we did the staffing model, which was if it was an ideal world, and all the librarians and the staff got the full staffing that they wanted. In essence, that was gonna add $1.5 million cost to a current, 2018 budget, and we were like, there's no way we can really afford that. Then we also had a lower staffing model, and Allison put the numbers in there, and we went through all of those. And when we went back the next day, and we, at the end of the meeting with the finance committee, the second meeting, Scott feels like he has to cut it even more. He definitely still wants to add people, but at the end of the day, we can't add as many people as we would like to add because of the cost. So this is the model that he has proposed, which you see there's, you can see if they have benefits and they're a full-time person. So
Mary, excuse me, I'm not seeing this in the packet. Where?
It's not labeled, it's this one.
It says,
Okay,
It's right here.
it has this out, I see, I'm sorry.
okay, it's okay. So at
And
any
it's so
rate,
little.
yeah.
We should have done it overhead.
That's
So
okay, it's okay.
This model
additional
in
staff.
the assumption is 2 full-time clerks, 2 full-time librarians, 1 part-time librarian, 1 custodian, no custodian, I'm sorry, and then 1 social worker. That salary, when you add up the salary, it adds up to $215,000. In terms of the medical, we took the distribution of medical that we have today, so we applied percentages so that we could come up with a better estimate of what the medical would be. So on the 215 on the full-time people, it would be about $46,000, and the New York State retirement cost would be $26,000. So it adds over to about $287,000 worth of additional salary and benefits, which we put into this budget model. So that's a big assumption. So the big cost change assumptions in the new model for 2018 are these salaries, as well as $8,000 in additional programming, because programming is the one thing that the public says that they really like. And everything else, what we tried to do was to look at our historical costs, the 3-year average and 3-year medians, as well as 5-year, to see where we could try to get money out. And he and I probably have met on this about 10 times, going over various models. So what you have in front of you here, and this is what you want to look on the very 2 top lines, is if you look under budget 2018 and you look at tax levy library operations, it would go up 3%, and the savings on the bond, it goes down 10.9%. So in total, what we're saying is for 2018, we would go out in total for a 0% tax increase. And I did call the controller's office to find out if, and they're fine with it. I told them exactly that we refinanced the bond, we're doing our budget, this is what we're doing, and they said, yeah, you can definitely do that.
Well, it sounds like the responsible thing to do.
Right, so, because here's our conundrum. If we don't put that savings back into operations, then obviously the bottom line of the deficit is much higher. Think of it, instead of being
Right.
$369, it would be $569. And then you eat up the fund balance that much quicker. So those are all the scenarios, and that's the 2 meetings with the finance committee, and both of those meetings went for like 3 hours almost.
Well, I appreciate all
Yeah.
the discussion and the thoughtful
Yeah.
inputs here. So if we don't allocate the savings from the bond here, what happens to that money?
Oh, it would just go back to obviously that could go back to the taxpayers. I mean, you could, but what my point of showing, but my point of showing you, if we were to, this isn't the full measure, but it would only be a couple dollars back to the taxpayer, so is that really worth it? I mean, that's kind of what we.
So the
Okay.
scenario on any budget vote that goes forward from here is, if it's a yes vote, then it'll be whatever increase the board decides. If it's 0, if it's a no vote, then in reality, people will get a return back. Their taxes will go down. So instead of their taxes staying,
What they
their
are.
tax rate staying the same, their taxes will actually go
Yeah,
down.
When
which is
the-
a political danger.
When we put the question on the ballot, the ballot question would be, do you approve, $6,854,299 for the library budget? And then they vote yes, the top line, the operational question, because the voters have already in the past improved the bond, so they don't have to vote on that again.
Mhm. Questions, Elizabeth?
I don't know if it's as much a question. I appreciate all that thinking through this, but I do think that we are so limited in what we can go out for that as a matter of practice, we should ask for a increase. But given our situation here, that we're even with these additions of staff, we're still not anywhere near what we hope to be. And I am concerned that with such a lean staff, if we experience some hard times in our community, in our country, and our library staff are under attack, I really think we're not robust enough staff-wise to sustain that. And we've been in a sweetheart position for a while. We have these beautiful buildings, but and we're only within this 2% range. We can't really go more than that without a lot of hassle. So, although I understand.
So if we went up to 2%, if we increased it 2%, then that will give you an additional 150,000, right? So that would obviously help, but I think we had feedback from the board, and other people on the board might like to say about how their neighbors were feeling about tax increases or not, and that we were listening to what the board people had.
Well, so is this the recommendation of the finance committee, Allison?
Well, I don't think we actually.
Have you had a chance to deliberate it?
I don't believe we did.
Okay. And so do we have to vote tonight?
Well, we have to have a budget that we're gonna vote on in the March meeting, that we all agree to. So if you want us to take it back to the finance committee, we can do that, but no matter what, we have to approve a budget on the March meeting. So
Okay. Well, that's fair enough.
we can go back.
I think that the finance
Yeah.
committee has done a fair amount of work already, and I
Yeah.
think it's the right path to go. Allison, do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we have another Allison, if we have another finance committee, all board members are welcome.
Yeah.
So I know Karen attended the first finance committee meeting, so it's not as if the finance committee meets and no one else can be there. And I know Karen, I think, added a great deal to that first conversation. That's when we started working on the staffing models.
So let me be clear about what's happening with North Albany. Where does this exactly fit? Are we looking at closing that branch?
Not with this plan.
Yeah.
No, not in this budget, but we do put it forth as an option. It's honestly, it's one of the few cost-saving options, and that given that we don't own the building and we rent it, we propose it because then we feel like we could redeploy the people into the branches without, people wouldn't lose their jobs, it's just we lose the branch. So that's a cost-saving option. The other option is Washington Avenue.
Reworking Washington Avenue in a way so that it's more cost efficient. What we're trying to do is look at the staffing model we have and see how we can redeploy people so they can shore up other locations that are staff lean. So at no time are we advocating through closing or reducing staffing. We're looking at those activities as a way to put that staff in other locations.
Will we, if we ever get to the point of looking at closing North Albany, will there be opportunity to perhaps negotiate with the school district or something so that services are not lost completely from the community?
Yes. And we're currently negotiating with them a reduction in the rent that we currently pay in return for our facilities people to clean the building as opposed to the YMCA's facility.
Karen?
Well, first, thank you for spending all that time running the numbers. I really, something that I asked for in the finance committee meeting, and it's just really helpful to understand what the options are and what we're really facing. Even if we can't do a $1.5 million increase, to know that that's actually what's needed to provide, what do you call it, five-star library service. It's really helpful to know that.
Really, it would.
So, the other thing is a 0% increase in this situation is actually a 3% increase in our operating budget.
Because of the reserve.
Yes. So that is a really unique opportunity. The other thing about the increases, maybe I shouldn't say this in the public meeting, but a lot of people's assessments went up really high. I have a friend whose assessments went up so high that her taxes are $300 more a month. So even if we have a 0%, her taxes are going up. So we have to be careful about how we message that, because you tell people we're not raising your taxes, and that's not true for individuals. So we have to be sensitive to that. So I was thinking about that in terms of any increase at all, even though the increases and decreases are very small, less than $2 going up 0.6 or down 0.6. There is impact because of the reassessment of the city. And I'm really glad that you thought of ways to add some staff to relieve some of the pressure. I get nervous when we use that much of the fund balance, not because I'm opposed to using the fund balance, because we're still setting up that unrealistic expectation that we can provide that level of service for only that amount of tax levy. And we're setting ourselves up for next year for needing a 4% tax increase. So that does make me nervous. I don't have any answers.
Well, so I might suggest that we use the reduction in the bonds, and we go out for a 1% increase. That it is a combined situation, because I do think we are going to get to that year where we have to contemplate closing North Albany, and it's going to come sooner than we think. And if people are not going to see a sizable increase in the tax rate for libraries with a 1% increase, I think that's strategically makes sense.
Well, I'm glad you used that word strategically, Melissa, because we're having this conversation in a vacuum without a valid strategic plan, and that's the level where we should be having some of these programmatic and functional discussions in terms of what are the priorities, and then the budget plan slaps up against that. So we may not be in a position by March to be able to do that effectively, but we need to move in that direction so that we're not having this discussion without strategic priorities clear and in front of us, and how the resources fit with that.
So Marianne, how does that affect how you feel about this plan?
Well, I have always been on record of not increasing taxes unless we can prove that we run the most efficiently we can. Now, that said, our branches do operate very leanly, but all organizations have waste, and we recovered the resources that we waste to funnel into FTE. And we're starting to take a good look at that with our lean management process, but that's incremental. And you're not going to get an FTE overnight for that, clearly understood. But unless we're making those kinds of efforts, I can't in good conscience go out hat in hand to the taxpayer. So for me, it's not just this, it's the strategic plan. It's what your quality management process, what are all those things that an organization needs to be doing to most effectively plan for and use its resources. So we need to get more sophisticated and perform at that level where all of those inputs come into this discussion. So that's how I feel about it.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Well, I mean, one of the things I look at here and from the finance committee minutes is that just to stop the panic when people call in, they estimated something $638,000. So we're not talking about, I don't think we're even to the level of strategic plan. I think the 45 staff members, the 5-star level, that's where we have to be thinking about the strategic plan. But it sounds like the library's at a point where it's crisis. They can't function. They can barely function.
They're functioning, and they're functioning well.
Yeah.
However, there is a deep concern from the front line to management to leadership level. Everybody recognizes that we are close to a tipping point when it comes
Right,
to
so when we had our strategic planning retreat, and we were talking about some of the factors imposing on the library at this point, SWOT analysis and all of that, these are some of the things that we talked about. Did we consider them enough, and are they strong inputs into our strategic planning process, so that in that conversation we start to make those decisions, so it doesn't become a crisis and we're making them on the fly.
One of the comments I made, though, in regards to the strategic plan and the retreat that we had, was it wasn't enough, and we need to move forward on
Absolutely.
that and get more detail and have more meetings surrounding that. So I think that's an issue too, where
And that's coming up on the agenda, and I'm going to look for you to volunteer then. Okay, so the Finance Committee is going to take all of this and digest it, our inputs. Feel free to attend the meeting or get your questions or comments or your position to Allison for consideration in that discussion, and then you folks will come to us with a recommendation at the March meeting. Okay. Any final words on that before we move on? Good discussion. This is important stuff. Okay, facilities.
We had a couple of meetings between the last board meeting, and there's minutes for one of them in your package, and I neglected to get the other set of minutes into the package. My fault. We met on January 17th. We talked about the facilities plan. We shared a model from a school district. Scott shared an assessment tool. We talked about the fund balance policy, and then in the minutes that you have with you, we looked at some plans for the front of the Washington Avenue branch, and we kind of narrowed it. We kicked around some ideas, and we kind of narrowed it down to about one concept for some signage in the front of the Washington Avenue branch, where there's this little thing that juts out. That's like a little block, and the discussion was about signage, and there were 3 concepts that we looked at, and we picked one. But Scott is going to make, as I'm going to say, that Scott's going to make some more inquiries about drainage and lighting, and we'll bring that concept to you in the future. Also, we looked at several designs for some facade painting for Washington Avenue, and once again, we'll be sharing some narrowed down concepts for the facade painting at some point in the future when some estimated costs are finalized and certain other questions are answered. There was a walkthrough of the Pine Hills branch on the 31st of January, and the staff employed the checklist that Scott had presented at the earlier meeting in January. And there's a plan to do walkthroughs of all of the other branches as well. And so we can create the wish list or the facilities plan. The facilities plan hopefully will go out 5 years into the future. There will be timing as to when we will spend what on what part of the wish list for which branches. We also looked at the fund balance, the revised fund balance policy, and came up with a number of approximately $1 million to be in the capital reserve fund, which was the new language in the fund balance policy. There was another discussion about, that was raised by Alyssa, that the governor cut library construction money out of his initial budget, and that we might want to consider passing a resolution recommending restoration. And send it to the governor and the appropriate members of the Senate and the Assembly prior to the finalization of the state budget on April 1st. That's about it.
So did you consider, you know that the mosaic project that's been here or there in Albany?
The community loan fund?
Maybe, I don't know for sure. Would that be an option for the front of Washington?
I'm not sure what the Mosaic project is.
Yeah, is it school kids or community
Yeah, it was
folks
a-
get together and, you know, under the guidance of an artist, they create these mosaics?
It was a bear.
Yeah.
It was a bear
What do you
of
know
a
about
project. It was a half of a side of the building on Orange Street. So, and it was a project where schools did some tiles and then volunteers helped tile it. I think it was a arduous process.
Okay. I'll just think about it.
Good job.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And we don't, I mean, if we're looking at the front of Washington Avenue, there's not wall there, it's mainly
wall.
windows. So doing a mural on the front of the building would be
Okay.
quite difficult.
Although it was kind of suggestions of like some of the concepts, there was some rather creative concepts that we looked at. And they were mural-ish, but not like a mural.
Okay, questions or comments for Andy? Committee?
We're gonna be meeting several times during the spring to try to put, elements into the facilities plan, so, when we do invitations for the meetings, I'll try to be, I'll try to put it out to all of the board members, so if people feel as though they can attend and they want to attend, they can.
We still haven't done the board tour of Pine Hills, so that will definitely put out there for anybody to participate in. Right now, Dan and I have selected buildings that kind of probably have some of the more costly issues, so we'll be doing Pine Hills. We probably won't finish until our head of facilities is back. He's taking some time out for some health reasons. So Pine Hills, hopefully we can do in April, and then we'll probably be doing How next. So just to explain the process a little bit, we have I think it's double-sided 24 pages, so like a 48-page or 46-page document, which Dan goes through, matches up with inspections, and then what his team inspects and what he inspects. That's the first part, and that's presented to the facilities committee. Then we schedule a walkthrough with staff. We did it with Mary and her staff. Staff kind of came in and out, as well as some facilities staff. We did a walkthrough of the building, took some pictures, discussed some major issues that they've identified already. That's in the process of being written up, so it can be given to the facilities committee. Once we have those two documents together and the facilities committee looks at those two documents so they have some background, that's when we'll plan for the next walkthrough. And that's a chance for the board members to see up front some of the issues that are there and why we think they need to be fixed when they need to be fixed. For Pine Hills, there's a serious concern about drainage and foundation, and also a cracked skylight, which keeps me up now and then. Thanks. So that's just one of the kind of examples. So once we have the write-up, my next goal is to do the write-up, to hand to the facilities committee. And again, we can share all of that documentation, and then again, we do the tour to kind of give everybody an idea. We had originally planned to do all this by June. As much as I would be hopeful that would happen, I think this is going to be a year-long process. And probably Washington Avenue being our last, because we put the most amount of work into it, and now it's become a building with less structural issues. So but every one of our BIP, and when we refer to BIP, it's the branch improvement project branches, which is most of our locations. You know, they will be, by the end of this process, they will be almost 8 years old. And we all know 10 years old for a building is typically, I feel like, middle age issues where the hips start to go and the knees, and you're going to the doctor a lot more, start to go, and we need to start looking at those repairs.
You've heard about them.
I was at the dentist this morning and got blood work done, so I'm feeling like a BIP building. So we're working through that process now, and I really commend the facilities committee because this is going to be a considerable amount of work.
Oh, thank you. Good work. Okay, nominating committee.
So, thanks to Karen's, your reminder and Karen's reminder, we'll be calling a nominations committee in the next couple of weeks. And just to confirm, that's me, Karen, and Arlene, right? Are you still serving on nominations?
Absolutely, I
Well, I don't know.
can do it.
I don't have the committee list in front of me. Does anybody have it?
Yeah.
There were some changes,
Yes, so you are early on.
I am on that committee. Oh,
but you're not chairing because you're chairing something else, right? Or-
yes,
yeah.
okay.
So that's in preparation for, the April information meetings about running for the May elections.
Well, but the petitions have to be in April, so.
Right, so that's March
Yeah.
meeting, so, right, so 2 weeks, but before the beginning of March, we'll have a meeting and then,
Yeah, we need to.
And Alyssa, you're the chair.
I'm the chair.
Because right now I have 2 meetings with members of the community who are interested.
okay, can you share that information?
I will share that information
Okay.
with you.
And we'll have 3 vacancies.
So, 3 vacancies. And Arlene and Karen, if we could just talk at the end for the dates.
Okay.
Okay, you wage Elvis?
Yes, on the life side, there was a advocacy leadership training Friday. And there's been negotiations so that there can be bulk purchase for membership into NILA for member libraries. So all that's been resolved. On the other side, there's major concerns about the cuts in the executive budget for library aid and in construction aid. We're looking at a $4 million hole. And there's concern that most of the add-ons from last year in the budgets that advantaged libraries have been eliminated. That there is a feud going between the governor's office and the legislature, and that libraries have become a casualty of this. So there is real concern that everybody starts to mobilize their network, and we, from the conversation that we started out with, this is, but we're really going to need to mobilize people. And to the point of strategic planning, I think we're going to need to take some, my suggestion when I look at all this in total, is that we really are going to need to get out of the box on this in terms of how we look at how we're going to move forward. Because locally, we know what we're doing in terms of our own budgets, and we've been prudent, we've been progressive, we've been all kinds of things, and we've done well. But we're at that point when he talks about a tipping point, we're there. And support, from the state is not looking good, and we don't know what's happening at the federal level. So, that's the cheerful move. I'm sorry.
What else you got for us, Arlene?
Well, just that we're smart people and we just need to get together and plan. People love the libraries, they love the services that we provide. And we're just gonna have to have some frank conversation with a whole lot of people and start mobilizing our network all up and down the line.
Well, to go back to Andy's point though, that was one of the facilities committee's recommendation, and legislators are getting their requests into the speaker, and so it now is the time that this body could agree to formulate a letter to our folks and ask for the restoration, particularly of the construction grants, because that's what allows us to paint the exterior, to do the projects.
So Tim Burke sends out those links where we can do that automatically, right?
Yes, as individuals, I think there's something to be said when the board of directors sends a letter to McDonald's office and says, you know, this is gonna have dire consequences for our ability to maintain buildings.
Right, so the facilities, are you prepared to craft such a letter for us?
Well, we were actually thinking a resolution would be good.
A resolution,
A resolution would be
okay.
thoughts of the Board of Trustees, saying that we'd love the restorations to happen, urging that.
Do you have a draft resolution? I mean, it's time sensitive, right, Alyssa? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yes.
We should have it done by,
Before at advocacy day.
Yeah.
okay, so we need somebody to draft something.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay, thank you,
No
Katie.
problem.
And we can vote online, can we? To approve it?
This group cannot vote online
No,
from
we
what I
can't.
understand.
Okay. No, that's right, it has to be in
Has to be in
person.
person.
So how do we deal with that? Can
Well,
we?
how about we just have a vote right now, like what
Yes,
our
the
general
concept,
sense
the
is,
concept.
and we'll just put some words on the paper
Stephanie, you ready?
and trust us too.
And can I also suggest that we also talk to Gillibrand and Tonko and let them know what's going on with us and why is he smiling? Have you already had the conversation?
No, I wish. No, I'm a big fan of Jim Brandon.
Okay.
Okay, so can somebody just draft a statement?
So
Real time?
Andy's, right now?
Yeah.
Sure, I'll say some stuff.
Yeah, lawyers are good at that, Andy.
Lawyer.
Let me look at the,
We hereby.
Very nice.
Throw a couple of those. Would you like?
so it was library construction and,
And there's aid to the
State.
systems, so there's two parts to that. We don't get any money from the
I
state.
think it's
It goes to systems, and we rely on the system for all kinds of things. And as the central library of the system, that's a major concern of ours, right? Because we provide services to other people, and that money, that central library money, comes from the system money.
well, how about something along the lines of, it is the sense of the Albany Public Library Board of Trustees that the governor's initial budget to cut library construction money and library
System aid.
Should be reconsidered and restored to the amount of the prior year's budget. And that we'll communicate this sense to the governor's office and the appropriate Senate and Assembly members. Anything you want to add? And that'll
I
be
think
my-
we should
my
say
motion on
specifically, sometimes they don't quite get it, that money for systems supports all of the library's ability to share resources. And given that that is a priority of New York State and the governor to maximize municipal services, libraries model it. And we do it, and if they don't help support that, then we're less able to do what works. That's for, and then for the construction aid, the construction aid is enabling libraries to maintain aging infrastructure. that's central to all of our communities. We're talking about, neighborhood infrastructure.
So that's the resolution.
Did you get that, Steph?
And I'll make a motion to pass that resolution as a general
Amendment.
sense.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion on this resolution?
If we can throw the words in there like government efficiency and, which is what you were saying, but like the keywords.
Models of shared services and collaborative planning.
Yeah, but just the keywords that are right in the state messages, I mean, just pull them right out of there.
Pull
Also-
his words,
What's that?
pull his words.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
yes.
So we can pull his words to make the argument for these things, so I think we can. I think that would be good.
Okay, so with those enhancements, take a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained, the motion carries. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Policies and procedures?
Let me just follow up.
sorry.
So that letter will be composed and then sent to our Assembly and Senate representatives?
And the governor's office,
Good luck with that.
maybe the lieutenant governor's office.
You know, you wanna talk about
Policies and
my-
procedures review?
Okay. If you, really no updates, as we did not have a committee meeting this past month. Just of note, things that are coming up, we have the whistleblower conflict of interest and fund balance that are left over from previous months, that we're still getting advisement from our, legal on. And then.
And how long has that been pending from legal?
Well,
Just a month. I think it was just he had to confirm some
Okay.
changes in the law.
Okay.
The law isn't changing officially until May, so we have
Okay.
a little bit of time on that one. And then we have
we have
several coming up.
7 policies that we're going to be reviewing on May 23rd.
February.
February
23rd.
23rd, I'm
Okay.
sorry, February 23rd.
Okay, sounds good.
Melanie, what law is changing?
Whistleblower and conflict of interest.
So the nonprofit law?
I believe so, yes.
We had convened to review those policies and we stopped
Yeah.
because we needed to have this,
Got it.
we needed to take a look at it.
He had found out the day, I think, that we were convening, that
Right.
there was changes to the laws being made, so.
And then we decided, because the finance committee was going to look at fund balance, we decided to just, wait.
Okay. That was wise.
So, now we
Right.
got 7.
Yeah.
Director's report.
3.
So, January was a busy month for us, specifically with programming and adult programs, oddly enough. The NORC program, which we partner with here to do book delivery, they're now starting to bring some of their programs here, which is a fantastic addition. Pine Hills is also starting to see some capacity with their adult programs. We were very proud of the fact that the Friends decided to do one of their very popular book talks at the Pine Hills branch. The only problem was we were victims of our own success. Over 100 people showed up. People had to be turned away. They're going to work on that program again, but we are still saying to the Friends, we want them to do more programs in the branches. Delaware branch is doing Saturday programs for adults as well. At the Howell branch, met a really cute family. I think it was about 5 or 6 children who are from Kenya and I think speak Swahili. And the branch librarian there came up with the really smart idea of introducing them to Mango so they could start working on their English. But as we're seeing when families move here from other countries, they're often large families. So it's 7 new kids in the branches. Some of them don't understand English. Some of them understand English better than they let on. So we're always kind of stressed on how to explain the rules and get them to understand the rules. I know that we've reached out to the USCRI in the past and also the Roundtable. Arbor Hill West Hill had an excellent Martin Luther King celebration. I have to give kudos to the staff. The main speaker was not able to attend the program, so the staff kind of got some guest speakers and some people from the community. And there was music and there was socializing. And I think it really showed kind of the quick thought of our staff to make sure the program still went on, although the main speaker was not able to appear.
And that staff member was your community
Engagement clerk. Yeah. So it's always great to see everybody pitch in. The Washington Avenue branch now has a new reference desk, which is much, I have to say, it is much more welcoming than the desk in the past. And it's going to be an adjustment for staff. The public feedback has been positive. Also, Melanie and Dan did a lot of hard work to bring that price down on that desk, and I was really impressed with what we ended up with it had a very small price tag compared to most library furniture. Operations, human resources has been having problems correcting errors with staff W-2s. Our new payroll company and that transfer has not been as smooth as we wished it would be. And then of course the business office has been preparing for the audit. This is a new auditing firm. I've met with them, but it's a lot of hard work. So the office should be commended. Development, Friends and Foundation have been collaborating, which is a goal of mine, to get the two groups to work together. I actually met with them again today. The foundation will be helping the Friends with their member database, and it should be a cost-efficient and working solution to an issue that the Friends have had for about 2 years. Upper Hudson is focusing on advocacy, and also we are focusing on the member library annual report, which we are close to finishing, and that will be something that you will need to review and look for in the March meeting.
And are you gonna do a
Community report based off.
no, the presentation like you did last year?
You need a video presentation.
Yeah, video.
Oh, that's part of the community report.
Yeah,
So that'll be a little different, but yes, we
Yeah,
will be
okay.
doing that.
that was such a hit.
And then for myself, I got to be one of the featured speakers for the CDTA Navigator launch, which was interesting. Got to sit on a white couch with Mark Egan and Carm from CDTA, but it was a really nice moment for the library. We got some excellent press for it, and we had some staff members who came and talked about that program. And also, we're meeting again with Albany Department of Recreation to put Wi-Fi access points at as many parks as they'll allow. Right now, we're launching it with the skate park that they hope to have done by the spring. Statistics-wise, one morning, we're gonna start to see our Wi-Fi numbers drop. The reason being is you now will have to sign in to our Wi-Fi and look at our user policy. What this has done is it's actually boosted the performance of our Wi-Fi network, and it's because we've done that update. It's also a great reminder for people that the Wi-Fi isn't free, that the library is paying for it. Statistically, as always, a mixed bag. I don't think there's ever been a month where that doesn't come out of Melanie's mouth when I ask her for the statistics. But one thing I really want to point out that I'm super proud of is circulation went up last month 20% at Arbor Hill West Hill, and program attendance went up 98%. Again, we've retooled that, and door count went out. We've retooled that branch a little bit. I think my staff have done a tremendous job of finding the talent to make that branch really work a little bit more like a community center. And what that's done is it's gotten more people in the door and more people borrowing items. Delaware, which we know we had some issues with about 6 to 8 months ago, circulation increase of about 7%. This is the first circulation increase for Delaware since January of 2011. We have a new branch librarian there who I speak very highly of. She was stolen from the Pine Hills branch, so she was under Mary's tutelage for a while. But she's done a fantastic job. I really ask for you to walk through the Delaware branch and see the changes that are going on there. We've also seen an increase of 63% for program attendance, which was a number that was lagging there. And then Howe saw 11% increase in circulation. It's the first time we've seen circulation increase there in a while, and we're very happy about that. You will see a decrease in program attendance. That is because we are no longer hosting Narcotics Anonymous there. That separation was, I think, It was done in a friendly manner. However, we recognized that we were having some severe security issues there, that it was attracting individuals there. Things are not perfect at the Owl Branch, but that's probably a reason why we're seeing such a large decrease. That's my report, and then I'll open the floor to any questions.
Going once.
If you had to pick a place, where would you like to see us kick it up a notch?
Everywhere. You know, although, you know, I have favorite buildings, you know, I would like to see it kick it up a notch. I've seen some branches really make some improvements. The branch we're in right now, we've seen a lot of really great improvements. What I would like to see is, even though it's gone up, is meeting room use across the board. I know that we're doing I know I'm not allowed to use Kaizen, whatever you call it.
Well, it's okay with me.
We just like
That's
that
how
word.
I thought.
We've got a new team working on room usage, after hours room usage.
March 8th and 9th, we're going to do the 2-day event.
If there's anything I hear from the public, it's that they want more rooms available for neighborhood association meetings. I know Arbor Hill Neighborhood Association meets at the rec center. That breaks my heart a little. I wish we could meet at the library, but I know it pretty much comes down to capacity for that branch. Same with the few Buckingham Lake Conservancy. I had a long conversation with that board. They met here, and they really showed they were disheartened with the fact that it's so hard to get a space. So there's no real branch I want to see kick it up a notch. Really what I want to see is us work on our strengths. And I think room usage and programming is our strengths. As a librarian, I'd always like to see our circulation go up. And we see it, fits in spurts, but if you read any national article, circulation's going down everywhere. I don't know if that's a commentary on society, or maybe people have more money to buy their books, more people are using e-books, I'm not sure. So, you know, I'm happy when the program numbers go up. I'm happy when the computer numbers go up, which some of them have, because technology is near and dear to me, but no particular location, more like numbers. And again, I think we have extremely talented staff. They need to be freed up to do some program planning. They need to be, you know, there are days where you will find library staff who are supposed to be doing reference work, maybe administrative work, and they're working circulation desk because people need to go on a lunch break. So programming, room usage, and computers.
So I'll take the opportunity to piggyback on that and remind us that, you know, when Mary Kuhn came and did the nice presentation after the 2-day lead project on new registration, that when we did return on investment, and these weren't solid numbers because we didn't have, you know, specific data, but we did the best we could, and it would free up staff as this was deployed across all the branches, 2,000 hours a year. And so just like we did that at Pine Hills, and then after testing the process at Pine Hills, the new process, deployed it through all the other branches with good success and tremendous feedback. So we're focusing on Arbor Hill for the room usage. We have a team that will meet there March 8th and 9th and redesign the process, test it out, and tweak it as needed, and then deploy it across the organization.
I really want you all to present to the regions. I really do. I think that this is something that others should see.
He's a plus.
Plus.
No, it's the staff who
serious.
did the work that present. That's what makes it really effective.
I think after we've got one or two under our belts, it is a belted, can be a belted thing. I think we would absolutely love. I think my staff would absolutely love the opportunity to present.
And to Hudson, Upper Hudson, but also to the Board of Regents,
Yeah, we would love to
please.
do it.
And I believe Rebecca, remember the consultant we had for the retreat? Well, she was part of this with us. She did put in for Nyla.
Yes.
And Mary Kuhn is on that. And
Okay.
so, yeah, we'll be getting the word.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. So creation of a ad hoc strategic plan committee. I know you had considerable discussion at the last meeting. I was not here for that. But I guess this is the next step, that we need to put together a group from the Board of Trustees here, working with staff, to take the draft that we have right now and put some shape to it, some tactical pieces. Do I have that correct? Where folks feel we need to go with this?
To set up the committee?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the committee needs to work on it, and I think the committee can also suggest what are the next steps for board participation in that, because I think we have felt like it's not
Okay.
complete. There's
Okay,
pieces.
but trustees would be on that committee?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, and bring it back
Yeah.
here,
Mhm.
okay? So we're looking for volunteers. Okay, me too.
Me too.
Okay, so we have Karen and Arlene. Did anybody else hand them up? Brenda, thank you, because I sort of made
Really under the bus.
And then Amy, you want to?
Well, Amy McLaughlin is kind of gonna be the point person for the board to kind of help the board with moving along the process. She is our head of outreach. And I think she has a good elevation, that understanding the elevation that this needs to take place. Give Mary Cullinan credit. She was the one who came up with the very bright idea. I think it's important for a staff member to kind of assist with moving this along. I would love to do it, but between the contract and the campaign season, which we're about to kind of step into, I think Melanie and I are both going to have our hands full. The L3s are handling the Kaizen event, and I really want them to concentrate on that. So I think she's a member of our services/leadership committee that meets once a month, and I think she's going to really be able to help out. She has her feet both in the daily operation, but also with administration and elevation. I like her vision, and I think she understands the library's vision.
And so I see this work group reaching out and, certainly to both Melanie and Scott throughout this process, because you folks are gonna have to live with what we come up with, and it needs to have that reality check, because we can get just so tactical, but, you'll have the better sense of that direction. So, why don't we put out a doodle poll and see when we can meet? Does that work? Okay. All right, under new business.
Before we move on.
Yes.
And perhaps this is something the committee will work on, what is the timeline? Kind of in general stuff, or now we're talking about the election season and in terms of even the trustees' time, developing the budget. So when do we need to have this done, and can?
Probably yesterday, because our retreat was in October, so we
Right.
are overdue on this.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
and so perhaps in our first meeting, we can, put together a bit of a timeline to do this as quickly as possible, but thoughtfully at the same time.
Okay.
Did anybody have any dates in their mind that, at this point?
I think you gotta decide what you wanna next do. If you feel like there's still more input from trustees in a coordinated way, then that's gonna take a meeting. And, then finalizing things from there. So you've gotta figure out what you want the process to be.
Yeah,
I know we
and
did talk about it at the last meeting about
Yeah.
people feeling like they wanted more input.
And I haven't seen the product that we have at this point. It wasn't in the packet,
Wasn't
I
that
don't
on the
think.
last board packet?
It was in there?
Yeah,
Okay, then I do have it. All right.
Mhm.
I was out of town, so
yes.
I apologize. Okay, thank you. Democratic values of the APL.
Okay, so I hope I have enough copies of these. So this is just my pulling together of some items from ALA has a library's Bill of Rights and a couple other documents. And you'll recall that we had a conversation a couple of meetings back about cementing our commitment to the idea, the democratic principles of libraryship. And so in conversation with Bob, I had proposed that maybe we pass a resolution identifying these principles. And he came back and said, well, there's not really been a history of the library making resolutions, but actually implementing policy. And so I'm not sure how to proceed with this. I kind of wanted to get people's input about just some of the language, which, you know, I thought was very strong and helpful in you know, connecting what libraries do to the Declaration of Independence and Universal Declaration of Human Rights, about how we protect you know, our rights on so many issues, as well as dissemination and sharing of information. So it has been suggested that P&G be the committee that looks at putting a policy together and actually pulling from our existing policies. So I have two sections here. One is sort of in narrative form that was mostly from the background to the Library Bill of Rights. And then on the last page is another document that kind of just a little more touchy-feely than the specific one. So I'm kind of interested in hearing whether any of this reflects our thinking about libraries, and then how we actually come up with a document that means something to share with the public or ourselves. I think it's used in two ways. One is if we have an issue that comes up to the board about sharing information, confidentiality, people's right to know, gather, discrimination based on refugee status or immigration or any of that, we're kind of saying that right there and then.
So we have the Library Bill of Rights as our guideline for these questions, perhaps.
That's right.
Okay. So we need to create another document.
Well, this is kind of pulled from a couple of places, and so, you know, it says some lofty things here that I just, you know.
Lofty is good.
I know, and I think when we come back to it, you know.
Is it really a policy you're looking for, or more a statement of?
Well, maybe they're statements of principles, that's another word. You know, a Bill of Rights, I don't know quite what that means, like Bill of Rights for our community or Bill of Rights for life, you know.
It kind of, as I was reading this quickly,
Yeah.
it looks like the essence of our core values. And when I look at everything now, when I consider everything that we review and reflect on in terms of our policies and our practices, it's reflected in this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess, lofty is good, and I think if ever there was a time that we needed some loftiness, it is like right about now. So, I guess the question would be, how would you want to frame this?
Well, just like in a strategic plan, if there were core values that we identified as part of the strategic plan, we would adopt the strategic plan, right? It would be a vote, we would take that on, so.
And typically, a strategic plan will have mission, vision, and sometimes values. And we didn't do the value part, did we?
We didn't, so maybe this is like part of that. I also think, editing this so that it's a concise, clear list that we can share. Right, one page. So I guess I wanted to get people's feeling about how we should best proceed with this. So that we can actually vote on something and be able to present it to the public and.
The thought of core value and linked to the strategic plan came to my mind too, and
Okay,
I
good.
think it makes sense to try to come up with something more concise and make it part of our strategic plan.
So, with that in mind, if the work group takes this document,
Yeah.
looks at the mission and vision that we do have as part of the strategic plan, and craft some values out of this, that's what you're saying, right, Karen? Does that,
So go ahead. Ari.
Okay, so I agree, I think that's the way we should go with this, but it almost feels as though you're thinking that we should have like a separate document that just focuses on our values here, in addition to what we might do with our strategic plan. You're thinking, are you suggesting, or would you like to see us have something that's separate that reminds people what this institution is all about and how it ties and how it connects to our democracy?
I would like us to be thoughtful about it and careful about it, but I don't want us to take too long. So maybe, and I don't necessarily think we need to promote it like as a statement. I really want it to protect us as a body so we can make good decisions when faced with difficulties.
well, and that's what a mission is supposed to do.
Right.
A mission statement and values
Right.
is supposed to be the guidepost for us when we have those tough questions. And in fact, we have our mission statement right here on purpose, on every agenda, as the guide if we do have some of these difficult things that, wait, let's go back and see, does this meet the mission? And so if we crafted some values from this and the concepts that we have been really focused on, as Arlene said, the values that we've built into our discussions and the decisions that we make and the policies that we set, then, and that's becomes part of the strategic plan for, of course, everyone here to weigh in on. Does that meet the need?
Yeah, so maybe I might suggest a twofold thing. I can take this back and do a bit of editing to bring a more concise thing for the committee to
right.
work on.
Great.
And then maybe if the committee, I don't want to sideline you to have to work on value stuff since there's a lot of tactical stuff that needs to happen. So maybe if the committee can have a quick look at it, or a considered look at it, and then make a recommendation to the board, maybe in advance of the longer strategic plan. Maybe
Yeah, that could
maybe
be
we could pass this
our
within 2
first
months.
product, yeah.
Within, right, it's a rollout of part of the strategic
Yeah,
plan.
yeah.
So
And it
maybe
should be
within
a-
2 months, we could have something to vote on. Maybe we
Yeah.
could present it next month
Yes.
for your review and then vote on it in the following
Okay,
month.
yeah, because that should be a frontispiece of the
Yeah.
strategic plan,
It
so
should
that
be.
makes sense.
Okay.
I could give you a hug.
I'll take a hug.
Okay, sounds good, thank
Those
you.
radical librarians at ALI, I tell you.
Albany Promise Agreement.
So I've been asked to sit on, don't remember the term they came up with, but it's the highest level, kind of I don't have the word, kind of the board of the Albany Promise. I'm more than excited to do this. They are an organization that is about statistical analysis, which is something that I absolutely love. I think I can add maybe to the organization, helping get their message out so that it's, can be explained. So they've asked for this agreement to be signed, that we align ourselves with some of their endeavors. We've done a lot of this work already. Both Amy and I have sat on committees and done a lot of work. This is the organization which has agreed to help us do a study of the summer reading program and its success. So we do align, they are a big partner of ours. And I would love to do it, but I have to do it at the permission of the board because we need to sign this agreement.
Any objections?
I
Good
make a
idea.
motion
Okay, okay, go right ahead.
that we, adopt this organizational agreement between our system and the Albany Promise.
Do I have a second?
Also,
Andy, okay, any discussion or questions?
Is this just a kind of an agreement of principles, or does it commit us to?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion carries. Thank you.
Did you?
Okay, so the quarterly evaluation of board meetings, so you know the drill on this, and we'll just pass them around if you complete them and just set them up here when you're done. And public comment, we will note there is no public to comment.
how is there no public comment on Valentine's Day?
Yeah,
Does
right.
no one know how to have fun?
And
We're probably having fun.
we
That's right.
don't have a need for an executive session this evening. Anything else before we adjourn?